Hey everyone, my name is Erin Curry, and this is my husband, Caleb Curry.
What's up? Today we are going to be continuing our series on I Teach My Wife Fill in the Blank. And today's version is going to be Git and GitHub.
Whoop whoop.
Whoop whoop. Do you know what that is?
I've heard of it, and I think I may have used it
Yeah, a long
for
time
your
ago.
website.
Oh, yeah. What we
To
did
put code in.
we use GitHub snippets to use for source code for my website, and you helped me out with that.
See?
We're going to first look at this Git Cheat Sheet. So you can find this by looking up Git Cheat Sheet, and it should be on there.
Hard to say.
Yeah, it's really hard to say.
Cheat sheet.
Sheet.
That could turn really bad really fast.
This is going to give you some of the key commands for Git. And if you don't know what Git is, the GitHub snippets, that's a little different than Git. That's for making source code little pieces that we can put on websites. This is to store all of our code for an entire project. So
Okay.
it's similar in nature, but it's different because we're going to put our entire project in Git. GitHub is just a place where we can store that repository. So it's called a repository where you put your code. If you're just using Git, it's going to be on your local computer, on your laptop. But if you want to put that online, you can use GitHub. So it's the hub for your Git repositories. If you just use Git locally, you're going to get some of the benefits of having a staging area and different commits, but you're not going to get any value when it comes to storing it online unless you have a server to put it on, and GitHub is going to act as that server. So if that makes no sense, the best way to figure it out is to just go through some examples. But I wanted to share this cheat sheet because this is going to cover some of the key commands we're going to talk about. So you can just scroll through this briefly.
You want me to read
No,
through
just kind of skim through it. So you can make changes to your repository, so you can add files or look at the differences between files. You can modify configuration. You can do stuff with branching, which we might get into that. There's how to create repositories, and keep going. There's some how to change file names, review history, and a bunch of other fun stuff. So it should be pretty cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue work on the project we started in the previous video. But if you're just watching this for Git, that's fine. You can follow along with whatever programming language, whatever software you're using. But we're going to start with where we left off. So it should be open in the editor, Visual Studio Code. Yeah, we also still have the console open, the terminal, which is where we were typing different commands. So I think if you swipe right, there is the terminal. Remember this? You chose the colors and everything.
Yes. I like the blue.
Now, I did get some good tips in the previous video, which I don't know, I didn't think of this because I actually did it in other videos myself. Visual Studio actually has an integrated terminal, so you actually don't have to have two windows open. So if you go over to Visual Studio Code,
Making this difficult.
no, I'm making it easier. Or if you right click on one of your files, such as index.js, and open in terminal. Now we have the terminal down here, and we don't have to have that extra terminal window.
Okay. I still don't really understand the difference, but
That's okay.
It might come
You'll
to me
figure it
sometime.
out with time. So this is the application we've been working on.
it's always focused on you.
So this is the application we've been working on. It's a Node.js application. And what we're going to do is in the terminal there, and you're going to say Git, just G-I-T. All right, you got a bunch of stuff. Do you remember what that means?
No.
That means it's installed. So if it said command not recognized or something like that, that means you got to go install something.
Okay.
So if you aren't to this point, you can go get Git off the internet, download it.
Go get.
And the way you basically turn this project into a repository is you say git init.
Git space in it.
Yes. Initialized empty Git repository, and you can see everything turn green on the left.
Oh, it's fancy.
Now that you have this is a local Git. We haven't connected to GitHub, which is where we're going to store it. We're just doing everything locally right now. So now what you can do is you can say git status. And you can scroll through that. You can see there's some red, and it says untracked files. So these are the way Git works is you can decide what files you want to put in your repository and which ones you don't. Right? So we're basically making a location to store all of our code. We don't necessarily want to put everything inside of that. We just want to put the necessary stuff. So there's also something with a Git repository called a git ignore, which is a file that describes the things we don't want to put into our repository. So we can generate one of those if you go into the terminal there and just type npx space git ignore. No space there. Yeah, good. Space node. Beautiful. Okay, so on the left,
It's a smiley face.
if you click on the new file there, git ignore, this is all the stuff we don't want to put into our repository.
So why don't you just not do it then? Like,
Just
why,
it's
why do you have to download something and go through all that? Why can't you just not do it?
good point, because you have to do it every single time. It's easier just to say I never want these files to go in there. It's just the best practice rather than having to skip any files.
Okay.
So this will prevent you from accidentally checking in something you don't want to put in on accident.
Okay. And what would happen if you put one of these in?
Nothing. It just a lot of the times it's stuff that's not necessary. It's just extra crap in your repository you don't want. So
Okay.
like you don't need to put your node modules in there or anything like that. You just need to put the essential code that we've created. So earlier when you said git status, one of the things in here was this node modules, which is all of the packages that we've imported into our project. But now if you say git status, go ahead. No space there, or space, sorry. Now when you look at this, you'll see there is no node modules folder. So it automatically ignored that for us.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't accidentally check in that, which we don't want to do.
How do you know what to type in?
It
It doesn't make any
practice.
sense.
It's all practice.
How are you supposed to know that it's supposed to delete that word?
What?
I don't know.
We have all these files that we've created, and you can see they're pink, not red, as Aaron corrected me. And you can see they say they're untracked. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So these are untracked, which means we haven't put them into our repository yet. Consider the repository like a bucket, okay?
Okay.
And this bucket we can take and give to someone else. So we only want to put the things we want to put in there that we want to give to someone else. We don't want to give everything. So now we have an empty bucket.
Which is our repository.
Yes. And we need to put our files into that bucket so we can share it with the rest of the world, like our viewers.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, logically, it makes sense. So all the pink ones are the stuff that's not inside the bucket.
Okay.
And you need to start putting those in there. So the easiest way to do that, you can see it tells you how to do that. You git add and then the file name to include what will be committed. But there's a shortcut. You can just say git add period. And the period just means everything in the local folder.
Okay.
So now if you press enter and say git status again, you can see they're now yellow or green. I think it's supposed to be green. It's
It's
just
definitely green.
green. So
It's
they
like a
went,
mint.
They went from red to green.
Okay.
So the green ones are in this special area, and this is a little confusing, so pay attention, called the staging area. All right? You have your stuff. You want to put it in the bucket. All right? So instead of just putting it directly in the bucket, you put it in a new pile saying, I want to put this pile in the bucket.
Okay. Why can't I just put it in the bucket?
Because it's being extra careful.
Okay.
It doesn't want you
It just
to-
wants to make sure I want to put it in the
This
bucket.
is like, okay, I want to put these in, but I'm not ready to commit yet. I'm just going to put them in this staging area to be put in there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That allows you just to be really specific about what you want to put in there, and you can put things in staging and pull them out of staging without having to put them all the way into the bucket.
Okay.
Got it?
I think so.
Now we want to take the stuff in the staging area and put it into the repository.
Okay.
So the way you do that is you say git, and there's a space after that, commit, 2 M's. Yeah, that's a hard one. I'm terrible at spelling. Space, -M. So the -M is short for message. So you're basically describing what you're going to put into the bucket. So it's basically everything goes in stages. Make sense? Everything goes in commits. Like you have everything ready, you want to put it in and describe what you're putting in there.
Okay.
So usually by convention, the first one will be like initial commit or starting my project or something like that. So if you put a space and quotes, you can put anything in there to describe what you're putting in the bucket.
Right here?
Yep. So you can say initial commit, which is common, and you could also describe whatever you wanted in here if you wanted. Mm-hmm. Initial commit's fine. So you can end the quote and press enter. There you go. So you just made your very first commit. And if you notice on the left, all those files aren't green anymore. They're back to white.
That's disappointing.
Okay. So you learned some key commands. You learned git status. Well, first you created your repository with git init. Mm-hmm. Then git status to get the status of your files. Mm-hmm. Git add to put it into that staging area. Mm-hmm. And then git commit to go from the staging area to the repository.
Okay.
Following all that?
Kind of, a little actually.
Wow. All right.
I like the bucket terms because that makes so much more sense.
Now.
Oh no.
The process of putting things into the bucket is called a commit. So every time you put something in the bucket, it's called a commit. What if we want to see all of the commits? The way you can do that is by typing git log. Sorry, pretty sure every time there's a space after git. So press enter.
Is that it?
Yeah. And this is our first commit. This is the first thing you put in the bucket. Your initial commit. Pretty cool, huh? Am I stressing you out a little bit?
Oh, I don't know. I kind of get it. I just don't know what I'm putting in the bucket.
You put in your entire project into the bucket.
It's all in there now.
Yeah.
I don't have anything outside the bucket.
Only your node modules, which
I feel like such an idiot.
No, you're doing good. This is like deep level stuff, which is why I think this is awesome.
Okay.
One second.
Just gonna stand there and watch me burn. I've had the weirdest song stuck in my head today. This girl is on fire.
All right, so the next thing I want to show you here is actually in this cheat sheet, Git show. So we've looked at the overview of what times you've committed to this repository, but now we want to see the actual files, what actually went in there. So the way you can do that is by saying git show, and then wherever there's like squares and it says commit, you just have to replace that with the ID of that commit. So in English, we're just going to look at what we put into our repository. So if you say git show, sorry, just totally forgot what it was called 2 seconds after I said it, space, don't put the square brackets, you're going to replace it all. And then put like the first couple characters of this commit. So C6, C574, E5F. That should be good. Press enter. All right, so it's initial commit, and you can use the arrow keys to look through it. So this is how you can get a deeper report of what has changed. Right now, you're just looking at the git ignore file. So if you keep scrolling,
oh,
yes.
Just kidding.
Okay, you got it figured out.
I was like, at first I thought we were putting this into our bucket, but it was all the stuff that you're not supposed to have in it. But then you just said we're just looking at our git ignore file.
There you go. So you can see the plus signs. Those show the changes to the file. And then here's another file, and you can see this is our actual code that we typed yesterday or the other week. I don't like people. You type that out, and console log tacos.
Oh, tacos.
So gross. I hate tacos.
Taco Bell.
Yuck.
Yes.
So you can go in here and see everything we've put into our repository. So everything is green right now because we just put everything in there. We didn't change anything. When you're done, you can hit Q. So now we're back to our terminal.
Okay.
Can you explain everything we just did?
No.
Oh, come on.
Don't do this to me. I'm serious.
Okay.
Do you really want me to? I can't. I don't know the words and stuff.
You don't have to say all of the keywords. Just explain the concept.
We first downloaded Git, or installed Git, I guess. And then we did the git ignore thing for what we don't want in our bucket.
Yeah.
And then we put things in a pile to put into our bucket.
So the staging area and the repository.
See, I don't know the words.
That's fine. I'm just putting them in.
And then we committed to that pile.
Yeah,
we were like, yes, this is what we want. And then we put it into the bucket.
Awesome.
And then we looked at inside of our bucket.
Yeah, we looked inside the repo.
Okay. Don't ask me what the words are. I just know it's a bucket.
So now, instead of just thinking of a bucket as just a ton of files, think of it as layers or different versions. We just put the first version of our code. And now what we want to do is we want to change our code and basically come out with a new version of our code. So a new version of the bucket contents.
Okay. So can I just envision like sand in this bucket in like different colors?
Sure. and when you look at the code, you look in the bucket, you see the top layer.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The great thing, the reason Git is valuable is because you can basically skim down and look at the different layers in the bucket. So you can look at the old version of your code. So it
shouldn't really be sand.
Sand, yes. It kind of mixes together, doesn't it? It's fine.
Play-Doh.
It doesn't matter what the layers are made out of. And that allows us to see differences. So if at some point a bug was introduced into our code.
Like a spider.
Yeah, like when you're playing with sand and there's bug in it, it's gross. So we can go through those layers and try to figure out where the bug was introduced.
Okay.
It's just better for debugging's sake. We can also, when we're working with teams, we can see who changed what. So imagine if you were working on a project with 20 other people or 100 different people and you couldn't tell who changed what. It would be a disaster because the code would just change and everyone would be like, oh, I didn't do that. It's like, it's broken. Well, he did it. But with Git, you have that transparency because every time you add to the bucket, it also says who added to the bucket. In this case, I added. You're using you added to the bucket so everyone could see that.
Okay.
Now what? What I want to do, I want to add a new commit to that bucket, to that repository. So let's change our application so you can see that. So let's go X out of your git ignore. We don't need to see that anymore. And we're just going to work on our index.js. Let's clean up some of this text because I don't like that it just says tacos. Why don't you put something more meaningful like application starting?
Tacos are very meaningful.
Now, I want to call you out on something, if that's okay. I want you to go into the terminal and say git status. And nothing to commit. Even though you changed it, it doesn't recognize those changes. That's because it's only going to recognize those changes if the file is saved. Which I know I didn't say, save that file. That's fine. You probably thought we were going to change more. But it's always a best practice as you're changing things just to save. And always make sure all your files are saved before you start looking into the into Git, looking in the what changes happened, because it might not see them. So if you change that file or save it so it's officially changed, now try git status. It can tell that we modified this file. So back to that 3-layer system, you have your stuff. If you look at me for a second, you have your stuff. Then you have that staging area where you're thinking about putting that stuff in the repository, and then you have the repository. So right now, those changes, application started, you have those locally. And we want to put those into the staging area, which is also local. No one can see that except you. So the way you do that is with git add. So you can say git add dot, or you can just say git add index.js if you want to be specific about what file. So space index.js. Awesome. So what did you just do? Do you know?
No.
You took your local changes and you put them into the staging area.
Okay.
So you're thinking about putting them into your repository.
The change from tacos to application started?
Yes.
Okay.
And now what you can do is you can say git status again.
This is so much work.
Enter. And it says modified. So your staging area, you can see that there's been a change. And once you're ready to commit that, you say git commit -m space -m and space again. And now you do a summary of the changes. So you could say something like updated the starting words. Yeah, but you're going to want to quote this. So there needs to be a quote before updated and afterwards. There you go. Now press enter. Awesome. Now I could say git log.
Git log.
And now you can see both of your commits here. So the very first one, if you use the arrow keys.
Author is not Caleb Curry. Let's just point that out.
Oh, I'm sorry. First one's the initial commit.
Okay.
And then the next one is the updated the starting words. Now, one other key trick you guys will probably want to know is if you change something, like get rid of this don't, and let's save that, what you can do is you can say git diff. Enter. And scroll through this, you can see the change we just made. So whenever you change your code and you want to just see what's going to go into that staging area before you actually do it, you can just say git diff to see to get a preview of those changes. So how was that?
I feel like it went a lot better than last time.
Really?
Like, I feel like I kind of got it a little. I mean, you can ask me what we did last time. I have no idea. Like, I don't remember any of it. This one's starting to make sense.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So we're gonna build on this application and learn a bunch of different pieces. Maybe next time we'll either go into some more advanced Git stuff like branching, or we'll just learn GitHub and how to actually take this repository and put it onto the internet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing this for you guys. So
Which means what should they do in return?
subscribe.
Yeah, that's right.
Your shirt is inside out.
Oops.
Is it? Oh, it is.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're very talented.
Thank you. So are you.
So maybe next time I'll have to do like a soap making video or something boring.
Something boring.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.